It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. We'll remove that drama and we'll do the right intro. And I guess we're just going to have technical difficulties here. And this is not going to work out the way that I want it to work out. So bear with me here for a second. I almost want to just start over. And yeah, so I guess I'm just going to start the live stream because that didn't start the way that I wanted it to. That's kind of frustrating. I was supposed to have an intro right there. Well, hello to everybody. How's it going? Let me see if I can cue this thing up correctly. I don't know what the heck happened. I totally grabbed the wrong intro. And, you know, things don't always go the way that you want them to. So bear with me 1 second. And I think that this is it right here. So why isn't that working? That should totally be it. Yeah, this is the right intro. Why didn't it work right? Stay tuned. Here we go. Let's see if this works. It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. We're going to do the wrong intro. This live stream is brought to you by Heatcraft Refrigeration. Find out more about them at heatcraftrpd.com. So I don't know what happened to my synthwave intro music. Did I have that music last week, or did I have the synthwave last week? I don't know. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. How many times did I hit the button? I was totally tripping out by the music because that's not my normal music that I have the intro for. But hello to everybody. Brian Sanders, thank you very much for that super chat, man. That is really awesome. I really do appreciate that. So hello to everybody. Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. So I got a few things as usual that I'd like to talk about this evening. But remember that if you guys have questions or things that you want me to talk about, feel free to put them in the chat. Just put them in caps lock. It helps me to see. And because there's whole conversations going on in the chat. If you guys are watching on any of the other social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those different ones, just understand it doesn't benefit me any differently what platform you watch this on, but there's a giant community of people on YouTube that have a whole chat going on. So the chat is most active on YouTube if you're interested. Okay, so it is what it is. But hello to everybody. And yes, I did get a haircut. I've been wanting to do this for a while. My family wasn't too into it and stuff, but I'm just over it felt like I lost 10 pounds when I got my head shaved today. So super awesome. It's just too hot to have a mop on my head. So just can't do it. And yeah, so hello. How many techs do I have out there, out in the field? So I am a small service company. So let's do a proper intro. So this is the HVACR videos live stream, okay? My name is Chris. I'm an HVACR service technician and business owner. Run a small business in Southern California. I started making these videos as a training aid to my employees, and these live streams are a way to consolidate the questions that I get from all the different videos that I post and just kind of answer them all in one place. Okay, so Miguel asked how many technicians I have out in the field. I have 3 technicians out in the field, 4 trucks, including my own, rolling around every single day. And I work every single day and I'm out there turning wrenches. If I can do anything to stay out of the office, that's what I try to do. But unfortunately, I do have to get into the office every once in a while. Now, let's see what we got going on in the chat. Definitely have pants on. Definitely have pants on, my friends. Definitely. Okay. Let's see what else. You guys make me laugh. The hair was majestic. Jennifer, the hair will be back in like 6 weeks. If I just let my hair grow, it just grows. It's insane. So you guys are killing me in this chat right now. This is hilarious. Oh man. Yeah, Jason Johnson was talking this week about his on call. He was on call last week or last week, whatever it is. And he had some crazy overtime. Yeah. A few years back, I'd say about 8 or 9 years ago, we changed our whole call rotation and our call schedule. Now this works for us because we're a small company. We changed it to the most you're ever on call is 3 days at a time. Okay, the most you're on call is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's a possibility it would be 4 days if Monday is a paid holiday, then the person that's on call for the weekend takes the holiday too. But that's pretty much it. And then we have a rotating schedule where each technician gets a day during the week, and that day rotates every week. And then the one technician that's on call for the weekend gets Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We did that just because, again, it works for us, to try to reduce the amount of work that a service technician has when he's on call. That's just our personal preference, and it's worked out well for us. So let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. Reading through here. What meter do I have that has the Megger and phase monitor feature built into it, Pat? Okay, so there's a couple different meters. I do not have one meter that has all that stuff built into it. I'm sure there is one out there. The meter that I use and carry in my tool bag most daily is the Fieldpiece SC480. It is a clamp meter, and it does have phase rotation built into the meter, okay? The Megger that I use would be the Fluke 1507 or 1587. I can't remember. Jason might remember. Jason, what Fluke Megger do I have? I think it's the 1507 or the 1587 is what I have. I also have a couple Fluke, like the 902 FC. I carry that with me too every once in a while. It just depends, okay? But I don't have one meter that does all of that stuff. So let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. As usual, I got a bunch of stuff on my list too, but I wanted to get through this comments real quick. Okay, cool. All right. Jennifer, thank you very much for that super chat. That is really awesome. And Jennifer, you didn't have to do that, but that is really cool. Tentatively, or no, I am going to be on the Misfits of HVAC podcast on Saturday, live stream Saturday evening. So check it out on the Misfits of HVAC YouTube channel. So I will be on that show this Saturday. Jennifer is one of the co-hosts, along with Ryan. Ryan Hughes? Good gosh, I had a brain fart for a second. From the Hughesman HVAC YouTube channel. So my brain is not working today, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. I've got a little jumbled brain from being out in the heat today. So let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Reading through here real quick. All right. All right. So this last couple weekends, I have been working on my house project, the little bits here and there. It's been a little difficult. If you don't already know, I've been in the process of changing my air conditioning system in my house for a while now. And again, understand something. Because I have no obligations, because I have nobody to answer to, I have been taking my time and learning along in this process and doing it as, I please. It's my own house, and I'm just taking my time working through it. So this last weekend, I've been finishing up cutting in register boots. We're changing all the register sizes and boot sizes all throughout my house, all the different bedrooms. We're deleting one of them. And we are, so I've been in the attic cutting those things in. I start early in the morning, and I'm usually out before it gets too hot up in there. But this last weekend, man, I had a dose of fiberglass all in my arm, all up here. My arms are just tattered with freaking insulation and glass, but they're just all scarred up from me scratching them and driving me nuts. But for the most part, I'm pretty much done cutting in all the boots. I still have one more, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it anytime soon. I might have to take the lid down to be able to get to it because it's in like a totally inaccessible spot in my attic. So my next step this next weekend that I'm going to be up in the attic is, if all goes well, I'm going to be spray foaming the boots and just going to get like a 2-part spray foam kit, like a froth pack. And I plan on spray foaming around them to kind of insulate them and seal them up. And hopefully we'll be connecting some ducts to them and getting that pre-ran. I'm trying to do this in phases because I'm leaving all my existing registers because my system is currently operating, my existing system, and we're going to be blanking off a bunch of them. I'm going to have a drywall guy come in and patch them all up when we're done. But the ones in each one of the bedrooms, they're like 90-degree angle boot boxes that go into the wall. We're actually going to turn those into transfer grills, essentially, or jumper ducts. They're going to be dumping into the hallway to kind of relieve some of the pressure issues that we may or may not have in the bedrooms. I haven't really measured the room pressurization yet, but I'm just doing that. Instead of adding returns into every room and then having to worry about duct leakage and stuff, we're just going to be doing short jumper ducts from the existing grills into the hallway that's out in front of all the bedrooms. So just been working on that project. Let's see. So I do want to talk. Let's see. Am I adding registers in my garage? No, I don't. And I'm not leaving the door open in my garage anymore. Let's see. You're doing a condenser coil repair tomorrow where you have to cut the metal and patch the leak where the liquid comes in and can't bypass. Like in the loops, do I have a video on it? No, I've done that before, and I actually have a evaporator coil that's leaking that you have to cut ductwork out to access it. But I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to get them to replace the equipment, basically. So Adam, dude, you didn't have to do the super chat, man. Thank you very much, man. All right. So I want to ask you guys a question in the chat right now. Do you trust load calculations? Okay. So a proper manual J load calculation. Do you trust it? A proper heat load calculation on a walk-in cooler or a walk-in freezer. Do you trust them? Okay. So I want to know in the chat, yes or no, do you guys trust load calculations? So I want to talk about that here in a minute, but I want to see some answers coming through in the chat. So let me know, do you trust the load calculations? Do you add a fudge factor to them? Let's discuss that a little bit. So let's see what the chat has to say. Let's see. Jennifer says she trusts them with her life. Let's see what else. Jason Johnson saying manual J. Let's see what else people are saying. Why do some compressors have different shapes? Different brands, different manufacturers, different types of compressors. Okay, you have semi-hermetic compressors, you have hermetically sealed compressors. Within the hermetically sealed compressors, you have little fractional horsepower compressors, you have scroll compressors. It all just depends on the types. So let's see what people have to say in the chat right now. Adam's being sarcastic right now. Is it because of the HVAC School podcast? No, it is not because of the HVAC School podcast. This is actually just my buddy Adam was having a comment in one of the Facebook groups, and a lot of people are afraid of load calculations. So let's see. Dale Mars asking contactor replacement, solid state relays. Okay, so I'll get into this really quick and then we'll jump into the load calculation talk. As far as my understanding goes, solid state relays are not designed to handle the type of current and the type of inrush that we have on a good majority of our equipment, or at least the equipment that I'm working on. And they aren't as inexpensive as a standard contactor. I could be completely wrong about that, but my brief research on that just basically says that the solid state relays just can't handle the abuse that we put on this equipment. I understand that solid state relays seem like an amazing idea, and I'd love if I could find one that's affordable, that can handle the current and the inrush of what we're putting them through. I would love to do it. So let's see. Dale Mar says no, done in a lab. Let me see what else. Okay, so let's get into the load calculation. So here's my take on a load calculation. A good majority of people, myself included, does not properly know how to do a load calculation and how to figure out everything that you need to know to do a proper load calculation. Now, I'm learning with the help of my friend Adam and with a bunch of research that I've been doing. I've been learning how load calculations are important. Okay, I trust load calculations, but here's something that you need to understand. You cannot do a load calculation, and fight me on this one, okay? Without making a bunch of guesses, you cannot do a load calculation without having and analyzing trending data on your existing system, without doing a proper blower door test and a duct blaster test. Okay, a load calculation is not the answer to everything. You need all those different tests and all that information to be able to verify and to be able to know if the load calculation is correct. Load calculations, I do trust them. Okay, as far as fudge factor, do you add fudge factor to a load calculation? And let's say, for instance, my house has an existing 4-ton system, and I have some comfort complaints in my house, but I'm actually downsizing my system to a 2-ton heat pump. Okay, 2 tons. I'm going all the way down to a 2-ton system because I trusted the load calculation. But to verify the load calculation and make sure that it was it was giving me the correct data, I went around and collected a lot of information on my home. I measured all the windows. I found out what types of windows I had. I went and I looked at the walls. I looked at the stucco. I looked at the tile roof that I have on my house. I looked at the insulation R values in the walls and in the attic. I looked at the air leakage in the house. I looked at all these different factors, and then we ran a manual J on my house, and then we analyzed everything. And what most people don't know, and that I have recently learned, and I kind of had an idea, but I recently learned a little bit more, is most load calculations actually have a fudge factor already built into them. Okay, I think we all need to be a little bit more aggressive with our sizing. Now, there's some other things that we need to consider when it comes to load calculations. Okay, number one, if you're doing a refrigeration load calculation on a walk-in cooler, you need to understand the environment that the walk-in's installed in. How often does the kitchen staff go in and out of the walk-in cooler? How often are they opening doors? Are they pushing carts full of hot food inside the box? All of that needs to be taken into account when you're doing a load calculation. The same thing that goes on a home. Do you have a grow op in your freaking bedroom? Like, do you have grow lights in your bedroom? Do you have a terrarium with a bunch of reptiles in your bedroom? All of that stuff adds to a load calculation. So you can't just assume that because you have a 1,500 square foot home that you need this size of a unit. That doesn't work. Okay. Also, you can be in a tract home with a bunch of cookie cutter homes, and each home can have a different load based on the way the house was built and put together. Okay. New track homes, they're notorious for being horribly built and not properly air sealed. Okay. So load calculations are important, and it's important that we trust them, but it's also important that we input the right data to get an accurate load calculation that we ran, right? You need to give the data to get the data, and the data has to be accurate. Now, most companies don't have time. Well, they'll say they don't have time to do a load calculation. The customer doesn't want to pay for a load calculation. I just need to throw a system in there that'll work. Okay. You can run into some problems there, right? So I had to make some decisions. For instance, at my house that I'm at right now, I have an office that has a massive computer in it that I run these streams off of and edit my videos off of. And I chose not to include that computer in my load calculation because if I remember right, that computer puts out something like 3,000 BTUs of heat. And I decided not to add that to my load calculation because if I did, then theoretically we could overcool this house if I ever move this computer out of here. Let's say that I decide to move my office somewhere else. Well, then if we sized my system with that computer in mind, then theoretically we could be oversizing my system, right? And we could overcool and overheat the house. We could have short cycle run times and run into issues. Now, we need to be careful about that stuff, and we have to make educated decisions. So more than likely, I'm going to add some sort of supplementary cooling into my office. And I designed it as a normal home when I ran my load calculation. That way I know that if I ever moved out of this, or if I move my office somewhere else, we don't have to do anything to the house besides turn off the supplementary cooling that I potentially will add to my house, right? Friendly neighborhood maintenance man, thank you very much for that super chat. I really do appreciate it. Paul, thank you very much for that super chat too. Legality aside, if you have an R22 home system that's running low, can you add consumer propane or proper R290 to get it a little bit more time out of the system? No, I would never add R290 to a system that was not designed for it. And I get that you said legality aside, but no, I would never do it because there's too many things that can just cause problems. Okay. So not even thinking about legal, I'm just thinking about being a moral person, and I morally cannot add R290 to an operating system. Can it be done? I mean, a lot of people can figure things out, but should it be done? I don't think so. Okay. Just because, you heard someone on the internet that says he took his car to Mexico and they got it filled with propane and his air conditioner has been working perfect for 20 years. That's great. That doesn't mean that it's right. Just because someone thinks that it works okay doesn't mean that it's right or should be done. Okay. Legality aside, or no, when you say legality aside, I mean, forget about the legal system. What happens if you put R290 in a home system and an accident happens and someone gets hurt or possibly dies? I mean, forget about the legal side of things. Could you live with that? Could you sleep like that, knowing that someone potentially died because of something that you did? I personally would not do that. I'm not a fan of retrofit refrigerants in general. I haven't had the greatest luck with them. There's certain retrofit refrigerants that I've had to use, but that's my 2 cents on the matter. So hopefully I didn't let you down on that one. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. In my scenario, would a 2-stage unit be a consideration for that? JR Smith, I went with a full inverter system, JR. And I sized my system accordingly. But yes, we have a full inverter system. So a 2-stage system to solve my problems, no, because then we could still potentially be overheating and overcooling. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. What am I missing here? Do I use a bolometer to measure airflow? No, I did not use a bolometer to measure airflow. Weather clogged filters, no PM. All right, reading through the chat right now. Why does a compressor randomly overheat, and how do you get it out of thermal overload? Mac, a compressor overheats when something about the operation of the compressor is not working correctly. If it goes off on thermal overload, that's an internal protection device built into the compressor that causes the compressor to stop operating so that way it can cool itself off and start back up. If you didn't have a thermal overload, then you'd potentially have a burnt winding in the compressor or some sort of internal damage that caused that compressor to implode on itself, basically. Okay. Let's see what else we got going on in chat. MO99 on mineral is a compressor killer. I would argue that any alternative refrigerant used with mineral oil, if it was designed for polyester oil, is a compressor killer. Here's the interesting thing. go to any one of the R22 alternative refrigerants, okay? Just insert whatever name you want here. And in the installation instructions, in the fine print of the installation instructions, they typically say, have some sort of wording in there that says works best with polyester oil if the system has long line set runs, high pressure drop situations, all these different variables, right, or disclaimers. Then they say it works best with polyester oil. That is code for it's meant and designed for polyester oil. There's some manufacturers out there that add hydrocarbons to their refrigerants to try to get the mineral oil to move better with the refrigerant, but inevitably they were designed for polyester oil. Okay. So I have used 407C. I've had mixed results with it, but I've always used it with polyester oil. I've never tried to add it to a system. I made a mistake many years back where I trusted what a supply house said, and I used an alternative refrigerant to R22 that said it worked with mineral oil, and it was nothing but a disaster. It was, and I learned a lot of lessons about trusting a supply house. Okay. Vital heating and air. Can I explain my service rates? Do I have a minimum 2-hour service visit on refrigeration or commercial visits plus a service call fee? How does the customer pay for big picture pricing? So the way that we operate, forgetting about what my actual hourly rate is, on a normal service call, we have a 1-hour minimum, okay, at our normal hourly rate. And then we have a truck charge, okay, that we add to that. And we charge travel time, okay? So at a minimum, the customer will pay for 1 hour plus a truck charge, okay? So let's just say we walked in the door and turned on a switch and it took me 15 minutes to get there and I was on site for 15 minutes. I charge them for 1 hour at my normal labor rate plus 1 truck charge, and that would be what the customer would be charged, okay? If it is an overtime service call, we have a 2-hour minimum. We charge travel time, but we charge port to port. So however long it takes me to get to the job site, that is my normal thing that I charge to travel home, plus whatever time on site working on it. But if a customer calls me out to a call that's 15 minutes away and it's overtime, it's a Saturday, I have to stop what I'm doing to go out to their job site, I charge them a 2-hour minimum plus a truck charge for the 15 minutes to drive there, the 15 minutes to turn the switch on, and then the 15 minutes to drive home. I charge them 2 hours for that, okay? Okay, but we are a time and materials. We do not do any kind of flat rate stuff. So if I go out there and I end up having to clean condenser coils and stuff, however long it takes me to get there, I charge them for that. However long I'm on site, I charge them for that. And then however long it takes me to get home, I charge them for that on overtime only. If it's a regular time service call just during the normal business hours, then I only charge them travel time there. And whatever time I'm on site, and the moment that I get the invoice signed and I walk out the door, my billing stops. Okay, so that's how I operate, not judging anybody that operates any differently. Have I seen the new Mission Impossible movie? No, Jordan. And I will say that I won't see the Mission Impossible movie in the theaters. I like the Mission Impossible movies, but they're just not, I'm just not into those in the theaters. I like the Marvel movies in the theaters. I've always liked those, but I'm a big fan of watching stuff at home. I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed the new Top Gun movie. I was looking forward to that, but I waited till it came out on video and I watched it at home. So, see what else we got going on in the chat. We should be able to tack on an a-hole tax as well. Yeah, you know, there's times that you want to charge whatever. So I'm reading through the chat right now. Let's see. HVAC Rookie says they charge port to port always. Yeah, that's good on straight time too. I really would like to charge port to port. And honestly, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make Sundays double time. I really would. Right now, we just charge overtime for Saturday, Sunday, and anything after 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So our normal business hours are 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then anything after 4 p.m. is overtime rates or, you know, whatever it may be. Reading through here. I will say on a side note, I was just getting ready for this stream. And it's probably going to be horrible, but I'm absolutely excited for it. They're making kind of a part 2 to Justified with Timothy Olyphant. And I really like the Justified show. Justified's about a U.S. Marshal in backwoods Kentucky, and just all the craziness that goes on. I've watched that series 3 times. My wife absolutely hates it. I love it. It's just super simple. It's like watching a Western. You don't even really need to think. You can just turn it on and relax. but I just saw like a thing, and I'm sure it's going to be stupid and whatever, but they're making a 10 years later Justified, part 2 or whatever, but it's not going to be called Justified. It's going to be called something different. So, but it's going to be Timothy Olyphant or Raylan Givens' character. So I'm super stoked about that. Carrier, Linux, or Goodman. I mean, it is what it is. I would probably say if you're giving me those two, I'd probably choose between Carrier or Linux, but I mean, Goodman works if you install it, right? So, Ghostbusters Afterlife was another good movie. Ghostbusters Afterlife was probably one of the better sequels I've seen in a very, very long time. They tied that movie together so well. Honestly, I think Ghostbusters Afterlife was just as good as the very first Ghostbusters. They did such a good job of tying in the characters. They did an amazing job of saying goodbye to Harold Ramis in Ghostbusters Afterlife. It was just such a great movie. I really, really enjoyed that. Paul Rudd did a great job in that movie. It was a great way to segue the Ghostbusters series. I know they're making another one right now, and I'm looking forward to that one too. It's going to be in New York. They're talking about the old firehouse. I'm hoping it's going to be awesome. So you guys are striking a nerve with my movie stuff. All right. Have I worked on Train Odysseys? Oh man, I think I might've worked on one a couple times, but not very much. So, any OT calls get time and a half. Sundays are double time. Will, that's awesome, but I'd like to get into that. Adam, again, thanks for that super chat, man. You don't have to keep doing that. There are only a few good HVAC groups on Facebook. That's a valid point. Two of the groups that I'm very solid and very comfortable in, there's a few actually, but two that I can name right off the bat is the HVAC school group and the HVAC overtime Facebook group. Both of those are great. Whatever. I'm a moderator, run the overtime group. I'm not a moderator in the school group, but school group is just a good, solid group. Lots of great information. All right. Heat readiness. Let's talk about this, guys. It is insanely hot outside, and I can't stress this enough. By the moment you start to feel the symptoms of a heat stroke, it's absolutely too late. Okay. And a heat stroke is not something to laugh about or joke about. You can die from them. Okay. Period. And you can have permanent disfiguration and, permanent damage. Heat stroke is it's a stroke. Okay. No joke. It's not good. Be very, very careful. Okay. Make sure you're taking care of your bodies. Brandon Priest, thank you very much for that super chat, man. And Paul S. Rohrbaugh, thank you very much for that super chat. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. Let's see. Brandon says he missed last week, but how often do I get to have times where I just get them running because you have a million calls and no time to do it? And what do I charge to put out that fire? I charge the same rates no matter what. All right. So I call that triage mode or putting out fires. Okay. It happens all the time. Where right now what I've been doing is I have one technician that pretty much does kind of like maintenance work and does installs of reach-in coolers and things like that. And so if I get a call for a restaurant that has 3 air conditioners down and I know this particular restaurant doesn't do routine maintenance and stuff, oftentimes I will not give the customer a choice and I will send my guy out there, the maintenance guy, and he'll go and just clean condensers, change filters, change belts. So that way myself or another technician can go behind him and troubleshoot a day or two later, especially when these customers don't do maintenance. And if the customer has a problem with that, they can call someone else because that's how we're doing things right now. I don't have time to send a service technician out there with the craziness that we have going on for him to spend 6 hours on the roof, just hosing things off and doing that kind of stuff. That's just not, I have much better use for the service technician's time to be troubleshooting, diagnosing, and repairing things rather than cleaning things. So that's my triage mode. Okay. And yes, there is times like today was a massive triage thing. And I'll definitely get into that here in a minute. Let's get to this next comment. Because your grandparents live in oceanfront house since 1960, where buyers tear them down and build McMansions, don't want a new system for the house to be demolished in 2.5 years. We'll just use window ACs. Paul. So legality aside, forget about the legalness. It's the safety of your grandparents. And it's not so much about legal, but putting R290 or propane in a system that was designed for R22 is dangerous. Okay. I realize some people will say they've done it and it works fine, but what if it doesn't? And that's your grandparents' home. So don't do that. Okay. Yeah. Window shakers, mini splits, portable air conditioners, or I mean, find a company that's willing to sell you some R22. I mean, I get R22. I still buy it to this day. I don't know what everybody's saying that they can't buy R22. Yeah, the prices have gone up, but it is what it is, So, all right, let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Right on, Fur. It's very awesome. Thanks for coming in here, man. That's really cool. What do I think of hydration packs? I mean, whatever floats your boat, dude, whatever works for you. So when it's this hot outside, we need to take care of our bodies. So today I went out to a service call where at 8:45 in the morning, it was 102 degrees. Once I got onto the roof, I knew it was going to be 115 to 118 degree day. I didn't plan on spending very much time there. It was one of those things where I sent the maintenance guy out there too, but I had to go help him because this is out in the desert. They're susceptible to sandstorms. So I spent the first 3 hours of my day pulling all the filters out of the units because they were impacted with sand, cleaning condensers, checking belts, and just triaging everything. All right. I was exhausted. I had to take more breaks than you can imagine going downstairs. By the time I left, the temperature in the sun had climbed to 118. In the shade, it was 108 degrees. Okay. But we all know that I'm standing on that roof. That 118 degrees is reflecting. It's bouncing off the roof. My feet have blisters. I'm standing up there working in it. My body was just broken. I have what I call jelly brain, which is a symptom of working out in the heat too much, where I just like my brain, sometimes the words don't come out right. It's probably the beginning signs of some sort of a heat exhaustion. Okay. So I was making sure that I had an ice chest with me. I was hydrating. I was going downstairs, taking breaks. I was eating food. I know it's so hard and I'm the worst person at doing it, but eating food when it's hot, it just sucks, but you need the nutrients. Okay. I am very careful, and I'd encourage all of you guys out there too. Don't drink soda. Soda is the worst thing for your body. I know you hate water. I know you hate the taste of water. I know you hate the taste, and you just love a soda, and a soda feels so thirst quenching. How many sodas does it take to equal one bottle of water? By the time you drink 3 sodas and you still feel thirsty and you still feel like you need a fourth, you could drink 2 to 3 bottles of water and that will suffice, right? Because soda doesn't give you the hydration. Your body's working to absorb all the sugar and to break down the water, and it's just bad for you, okay? I watched one of those short form contents of a very popular person on TikTok, and he was posting about how, his secret to having cold water or to having a cold drink and staying hydrated. And he takes a soda can and he rolls it on in ice water, and it's instantly cold and he can drink it right out of a 12 pack. That's the worst advice you can give to anybody. Don't drink soda. Okay. I'm telling you this from experience. It's horrible for you. Okay. So here's my plan. And I'm not perfect. Okay. I typically drink 3 to 4 waters to 1 Gatorade. And Gatorade's not the best thing for you too. Okay. But I drink 3 to 4 waters to 1 Gatorade. Okay. And then 3 to 4 more waters. And then if I feel the need for another Gatorade, most of the time I don't. Okay. Most of the time I just continue on with water. Right. And then eating and taking breaks. And that's what I was doing today. So I think all together today, in my time, I drank 8 to 10 waters, maybe 12. I don't know. And I think I had 1 Gatorade with lunch or something like that. Okay. But you got to be careful about all the different sugars and stuff. And I get it. Everybody says, the Gatorades are good for you, but they're full of sugar. Okay. They really are. There's things out there like liquid IV and different things. Those are supposed to be great. My wife swears by them. I've never had a liquid IV. I should probably try it. They're just full of a bunch of nutrients and different things that can help you. But we got to be careful, and we got to make sure that we're being safe. Don't let your service company pressure you into working on the roof when it's too hot. Don't let, your body, and you need to protect yourself, right? Your job will replace you if you die on the roof today. They will be sad about it, more than likely. They will take a little grieving time, but they will replace you. They will find a new service technician. Your family can't replace you, okay? You need to go home at the end of the day. So take it easy. Don't overheat yourself. Don't kill yourself for a job, okay? I'm a business owner, and I'm telling you this. At the same time, I'm, talking to my dad today, and we were getting ready because my dad and I work together, and I was telling him, I go, I don't want people out in the sun. I don't want people on the roof past 11, 12 o'clock. I don't want people spending X number of time on the roof. We're calling them constantly. Hey, have you taken a break? Are you okay? We're reminding them. Don't overwork yourself to just get some stupid contactor changed or to get a condenser fan motor cleaned. I realize there's 40 people in that dining room and they're all really, really hot, but they're not as hot as you on the roof. Okay. So take care of your body and don't let someone pressure you into hurting yourself and working outside. So make sure you guys are being safe. Let's see what else we got going on in this chat right now. What advice do I have for apprentices that are discouraged and slow learners in the field? Okay, so as an apprentice, you need to understand something. Your apprenticeship is a time for you to learn, but it's also a time for your company to get used to you and see if it's going to work out. If you're a slow learner, you got to figure something out. You got to start doing footwork on your own. You know, if you're not picking it up, then maybe there's something else you can do within the industry to slowly learn, right? I want you to take your time and I want you to learn properly. And I realize some people learn differently than others, but you also have to learn that a business has to make money. Okay. And for a business to make money, typically as an apprentice, most companies don't make money off of an apprentice. Okay. They might break even or something, but they're not making money. But that's a body. That's a body that they're paying insurance for. That's a body that they're putting in a service vehicle. That's a body that they're supplying some sort of tools and uniforms to. Right? So you have to be able to make your company money. So figure something out, do extra research, learn on your own time, ask questions when it's appropriate to ask questions, take pictures when you can on the rooftop and research that equipment and start asking other people. Something to understand is as an apprentice, it's okay, right? That you don't quite learn properly from one single person. You can ask other people too, but you have to do some of your own footwork. So hopefully that answers your question for you. See what else we got going on here. Do I eat lunch at the restaurants while I'm servicing their equipment? No, I don't, Kaden. Okay. Many years ago, my oldest daughter, she used to be super excited about going out to a hamburger place that I service. And that was her favorite restaurant. And what I would find is that the restaurants always offer me food. And then I would eat food. And then when I went home, I never wanted to go out to eat because I ate fast food or restaurant food all day long. So I stopped accepting food from my restaurants and I started bringing my lunch or buying my lunch and saving restaurant food for when I go out with my family. So that way I can enjoy it and I'm not burnt out. I'm a person that gets burnt out on certain foods all the time. So I always try to do that. All right, let's see what else we got going on in the chat. What am I missing? Let's see. Sorry if I go off on rants all the time. Don't eat ice from restaurants. Why? You know what? I eat ice from restaurants. Ignorance is bliss. I go to Subway and I get ice. You know, whatever. That stuff doesn't bother me. That crap that's in the ice, it's the same stuff you're breathing. Yeah, it looks gross. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some ice machines that I'm going to say, yeah, I'm not going to eat the ice out of that. But like I said, ignorance is bliss. If the cover's shut on the ice machine and I don't see any big indicators like slime hanging from the ice trough or something, I'm just going to get it and move on. So see what else we got going on in here. All right, reading through the chat right now. Okay, so Justin had a great question. So Justin emailed me and he said, hey, he's working on a particular piece of equipment. It's I can't remember if it was an air conditioner or a chiller, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So he had a question and he said, look, here's the deal. It's a liquid line dryer and he needs to replace it, but the liquid line dryer is a 5/8 inch dryer. So it comes out of the condenser as a 5/8 dryer, then it stubs down to 1/2 inch. And he wants to know if he can put in a 1/2 inch dryer. Is that going to be a problem? Yes, you can put a 1/2 inch dryer, 1/2 inch line size. Okay. Here's something that you need to understand. Dryers are sized based off of they're based off of their desiccant that's inside of them and the amount of refrigerant that can flow through them and clean the refrigerant properly. Okay. So in that situation, the manufacturer made a decision to go from 5/8, then stub it down with a bushing to 1/2 inch. In that situation, yeah, if you wanted to, you can put a 1/2 inch dryer on there. It's not going to make a huge difference. Be cautious about going from 5/8 to 1/4 inch. Okay. But I want to talk about that. First and foremost, make sure if you guys are interested, Sporlan has these tech bulletins. You don't have to have the actual paper bulletin, but it has lots of information about their dryers. This is bulletin 40-10. It goes all into sizing filter dryers and the proper flow through the filter dryers, the capacity, and the different things. Okay. I err on the side of oversizing dryers as far as the desiccant goes. Okay. What you're going to find is most manufacturers out there, they actually put smaller dryers than what Sporlan recommends on there. what I mean by that is if you go on the side of a Sporlan box right here, they have line size, or they have sizing information. And it says basically this is a 16 cubic inch dryer. And it says for R22, this right here in refrigeration is good for 1.5 to 3 what is that, tons of refrigerant, okay, or 3 tons as in the size of the system. So the 16 cubic inch is good for up to a 3-ton refrigeration system, okay? Or on an air conditioning system with R22, it's good for up to 5 tons, okay? But what you're actually going to find is some manufacturers might have an 8 cubic inch dryer on there or a 5 cubic inch dryer on there. As long as they can get the proper velocity through the dryer as a brand new piece of equipment, they're not planning on having cleanup done to it because in theory, the system should be clean from the manufacturer. That's not always true, but in theory, okay? So what you'll find is oftentimes on the repair side of things, we tend to want to put in bigger dryers. That's why I err on the side of oversizing dryers. So typically I use 16 cubic inch for the most part on most of the equipment that I work on, but always pay attention to their sizing charts. And again, in that bulletin 40-10, it has great information on sizing. Now, it's not just about the tonnage. You have to pay attention to the velocity of the refrigerant that needs to move through there, the flow. And again, this Sporlan Tech Bulletin 40-10 is a great way, and it goes through all the information. Sporlan does a great job of having those tech bulletins. They actually have a bunch of different tech bulletins here. I like to have the paper ones. You got them on sight glasses, see-alls, distributors. This is 20-10, expansion valves 10-10, head pressure control valves 90-30, and there's a couple different ones. There's OROA valves, ORI valves. There's a bunch of different ones. So they have lots of great information. You can just look these up. Just look up Sporlan Tech Bulletins, filter dryers, and it'll come up. You know, you can find all that information, but pay attention to that, okay? Because that's really good. But yes, in your situation, you're going from a 5/8 inch line and it's already stubbing out 1/2 inch. You can put a 1/2 inch all the way through dryer on there. You're just going to have to use a bushing to go up to the 5/8 line though. So when it comes to the Sporlan dryers, HH is meant for system cleanups after a burnout. The HH is actually in. So this is going to get into semantics, okay? So HH, I always thought it meant high acid. It actually doesn't. The HH core in a Sporlan dryer. So this is a standard desiccant core, okay? This is the inside of one of those. This is a cutaway of one, okay? This is not an HH core, neither is this. The HH core actually has special cleaning powers inside of it that are meant to clean up wax residue from system burnouts. So in theory, if you have acid in the system, that acid starts to float around. Hold on. That acid starts to float around and it starts to eat away at the wax coating on these windings. This is the compressor windings, okay? And that wax can actually flow through the system and clog up a lot of stuff. So the HH core is actually meant for high wax removal. It's meant to remove that wax coating from the system. It's a finer cleanup ability, and it basically, okay? So technically it's not for acid. Again, for the good majority of my career, probably up until the last 2 years, I used to call them high acid dryers. They're technically not for acid. The standard core, desiccant core in a Sporlan dryer is perfect for acid, and it has acid cleanup capabilities. So this is perfect for acid, but the HH core helps to clean up the aftermath of the acid, okay? And again, there's lots of information in that tech document 40-10 that explains that, and it's great information, okay? All right, let's see what else we got going on the chat. Let's see what else. Reading through the chat. Would I recommend putting a dryer indoor or outdoor? That just depends on the region that you're in. I'm in Southern California. We don't have a lot of moisture in the areas that I work in. So I'll put them outside as long as they're just not getting beat down by the sun. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're in an environment that has a lot of moisture, a lot of rain and different things like that, then when you braze the dryer in and you burn the paint a little bit, the moisture in the air will start to rust out that dryer, and then you'll get situations where the dryer can start to leak refrigerant because it's all rusted out. In that situation, it'd be a good idea to install it inside. See what else we got going on in the chat. I want the one with the flag on the sleeve. You're talking about the shirts? Go to hvacrvideos.com. I only have so many of those shirts left. We're not doing any more big orders of the shirts. We're just focusing on the hats because they're just, it's a pain in the butt with the shirts and they're not selling. And same thing with the sweaters. Like we're gonna find out some ways to clear out those sweaters too. So let's see. You can put the right size piston in, but it seems super wrong. Oh, okay. Reading through the chat, you're wrong. Oh, thank you very much there, Eddie. If you guys are interested, I got a bunch of different hats available on the website. This is my standard hat right here. This is what I wear every day. Flex fit, curved bill, black underbill, flex fit back. It's a breathable material. Then we have a flat bill hat that is actually a flex fit, but it's a snapback, but it's still a flex fit. This is not so much as the breathable material as the normal hat, but it is the flat bill and the black underbill. And then we also have a dad hat for the people that have really small heads. I'm talking like super small heads, and like that relaxed fit hat. Again, black underbill, not the breathable material, but it's a clasp on the back. Those are all available on my website, hvacrvideos.com. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Reading through the chat right now. What am I missing? Okay, cool. So Justin, hopefully that answers your question about the dryers. Let's see what else I got on my list. Tom asks about another source for cell deck media pads, because Tom has noticed, and he had one customer that they replaced the cell deck media pads, I'm assuming on their makeup air unit, and the smell coming out of the cell deck pads was just horrendous, and the customer was complaining. Tom, I don't have a solution for you. Okay. I run into this also where I just replace cell deck media on a makeup air unit, and it's like this burning smell inside the building. And it's just from the glues and the cardboard paper material that the cell deck media is made out of. If you guys don't know, cell deck media is an evaporative cooling media that you run water and air over, and it evaporates the water, and you get cooling from that, right? Evaporative cooling, but you add latent load to the building, humidity to the building. Okay. But the cell deck has just this horrendous smell, and he says he's washed it. I've done it too. You try to wash it as much as possible. It's just, you got to let it just kind of work its way out. But I mean, swamp cooler material does the same stuff. It's just made out of this paper cardboard material, and it's all glued together. You're probably just, it's just VOCs is all you're getting, like just volatile organic compounds, right? It's just the glues and different things that you're smelling. Same thing like that new car smell that everybody likes, or the new house smell. That's actually just VOCs that you're smelling. See what else we got going on in the chat. Reading through the chat. If the purpose of a TXV is to maintain superheat, why charge via subcooling? Okay, Mr. Green, here's the deal. So on refrigeration equipment, we charge via sight glass, okay? But there's some disclaimers. If you have a head pressure control valve in the system during a flooded charge situation, you need extra refrigerant, okay? But when we charge via a sight glass, we typically have extra refrigerant stored in the receiver. And that refrigerant can be used if the system expansion valve opens and closes, okay? So let me grab an expansion valve. So we have an expansion valve right here. I have a cutaway. I've done these cutaways myself with just a bandsaw. It just takes time. You have a sensing bulb. When this sensing bulb opens and closes this expansion valve based off of the system load, it looks at the suction line temperature and it determines a little bit warm. It might open, it might close, depending on the load on the system, right? So when you have a receiver, that's a vessel that allows that refrigerant to be stored in that vessel, and you can have extra refrigerant when that expansion valve needs it. Because if you have an expansion valve that's wide open, it's going to require more refrigerant than a valve that's slightly closed down. So why do we charge by subcooling then on some air conditioning systems? Okay, most air conditioning systems, unless it's a built-up system, does not have a liquid line receiver, a storage vessel for that extra refrigerant. So we actually rely on a slightly oversized condenser to store that extra refrigerant, okay? So when we don't have a sight glass on an air conditioning system and we want to know how much extra refrigerant we have stored in the condenser, what we actually do is we measure the subcooling. So that's why, if you notice that if you go out in the middle of the summer and you charge an air conditioning system, oftentimes it will require less subcooling, or it'll basically, because you're going to use more refrigerant in the summertime when the expansion valve's open, okay, you'll measure lower subcooling, versus when you go out in the wintertime, you'll measure higher subcooling, okay? And it can vary different times, but basically the reason why we're charging by subcooling is to make sure that we have enough refrigerant for all ambient conditions, cold or hot. So basically you'll charge it sometimes for a higher subcooling number, and that's why you have to use the manufacturer's subcooling charts, okay? But let's be clear, on a refrigeration system that has an expansion valve and a receiver, you do not charge via subcooling, okay? You charge by clearing the sight glass and adding winter charge if necessary, okay? Subcooling is not something that we use to charge on refrigeration systems that have receivers. And if people are telling you that, then you need to start questioning their motives as to why they're telling you that and where they got that information. I'm not saying that there's not a manufacturer out there that says to charge a refrigeration by subcooling or refrigeration system, but you're typically going to see that on air conditioning systems, okay? Another thing that you'll notice is if you're charging an air conditioning system and that requires a certain subcooling number, that subcooling number is going to be dynamic. It's going to change dependent on the load conditions and the ambient conditions, okay? The required subcooling number. With that being said, if you add a sight glass to the system, what you will typically notice is as you're adding refrigerant, get to the point that the sight glass is cleared, but you will notice that the subcooling chart still calls for more refrigerant. Again, because it's backing up that refrigerant into the condenser for a time when it might need more refrigerant at a different time, okay? If that makes sense for you. Alex, thank you very much for that super chat. I really do appreciate that. That's really cool, man. Very, very nice. He says he works as a train technician in Canada, and he likes the video, so that's really cool. Do I take Ecotech stickers off the equipment? Free funky. No, Ecotech's one of the competitors in my area. We don't really cross paths very much. And I'm not a huge fan of taking other people's stickers off the equipment. I mean, I don't care if there's a sticker on there. Most customers that I have, they aren't allowed to call certain people. I work for big national chains and corporate accounts, and they're only supposed to call certain vendors for certain locations. So I'm not too intimidated if I see someone else's sticker. Let's see. Why do I charge with superheat? You will charge with target superheat when you have a fixed orifice metering device. Okay. So again, not on refrigeration systems, but on fixed orifice metering devices on air conditioning systems, you're going to use a target superheat chart. And it's basically going to be based off of the outside conditions, the indoor conditions, and it's going to come up with a target superheat number of which you're charging the system, but it's only on fixed orifice metering devices. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Reading through the chat. Okay, cool. Reading through the chat, already answered the sell deck question. Instead of telling, oh, so this is another question. So I mentioned something in my recent video where someone said, because I mentioned in the video that I'm always going to do my best to do the footwork for another trade. So basically, if I go to a restaurant and I find out that they need a new circuit breaker, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take pictures. I don't allow my employees to open up circuit breaker panels. Okay. That's just not it. We tell them to get an electrician. Now, I, being the owner, can take the liability. I will open up a circuit breaker panel. I will look, I will measure voltage. I will make sure the bus bars aren't burnt, but this is all just for information. I'm not changing circuit breakers. I'm not replacing bus bars. I'm leaving that up to the electrician. But whenever possible, I do the footwork to try to help the electrician. So that way, you know, they know what they're walking into. I'll take pictures of the type, the style, the model number of the breaker, the model number of the panel, and I'll give that information and have the manager send it to the electrician and say they need a new breaker. Another thing that I will do with managers, if I diagnose a bad breaker, I will tell the manager, do not let the electrician come and tell you that there's nothing wrong with the breaker. I diagnosed it for a reason. It's bad. It needs to be replaced. Okay. I will be very thorough about that. Same thing with water leaks. Okay. When a plumber, when we go out and we find out that the water leak that the manager called us about actually isn't our problem, I will identify the leak. Okay. Not just say it's not from my AC. I will go and I will find the leak as best as possible. I will take pictures of it. I will mark the leak, take a piece of plastic, and flag it or something, show the manager to the best of my ability. So that way nobody can come behind me and say, Oh no, it's the HVAC guy's problem. Because it's really easy to get caught into a little battle where the plumber comes out and he says, call the HVAC guy. Then I go out and I go, it's not my problem, call the plumber. And then the manager's just stuck in the middle with two people. So do the footwork. If I'm called out there and I find out it's not my problem, I'm going to show the manager. I'm going to identify it. Am I ripping the customer off because I'm spending more time verifying that it's not my problem and identifying the leak for the next guy? No, because, and this is the way I treat it. If a plumber did that for me, I'm still going to diagnose it. I'm not going to go in there and assume that the HVAC technician did this. Now, when it comes to a circuit breaker, yes, it needs to be replaced for a specific reason. Okay. But I expect that an electrician's going to re-diagnose something, and I don't take offense to that, but I tell the manager, the electrician needs to replace that breaker. Don't let them tell you it's not bad. It has to be replaced, So I'm probably contradicting myself there. I actually just had that this last weekend where I went out on a service call for a walk-in cooler not working, and I found that it had a bad circuit breaker. It was in a tripped position when I got there, and it wouldn't reset. Would not reset for the life of me. And then finally I opened up the panel. I looked at it. There's nothing wrong with it. I got it to reset. And I told the manager, do not shut it off. Call the electrician. I didn't find any reason for it to be tripped. I tested everything to ground before I reset it. Couldn't find any reason. Told him, get an electrician to replace it, Melvin had a great question. So he was watching my video, and I mentioned something in my recent video that I knew my customer very well because I've been servicing their particular location for over 20 years. And he said, if I've been servicing that restaurant for 20 years, I found plugged up returns. And he said, well, why am I not making sure that the customer does routine maintenance? So he's basically, and I'm asking you guys, am I doing the customer a disservice by not forcing them to do routine maintenance? Okay. Basically, he's saying, because I've serviced them for 20 years, why is the restaurant that dirty? The restaurant's that dirty because the customer doesn't want to do routine maintenance. It's their money. It's not mine. Okay. I'm just the guy fixing things. I can't force them to do normal routine maintenance. Does it suck? Yeah. Is there times that I'll not make them a priority because they call me out thinking it's an emergency? And it's like, dude, I'm too busy to come out there and clean things. Yeah, I'll do that sometimes. Okay. But if the customer doesn't want me to do routine maintenance, I'd love to be able to say, I'm not going to service you because you don't do maintenance, but that's not going to fly. Okay. Almost every chain restaurant out there, almost everyone, has either eliminated their maintenance programs or they've reduced it down to the amount that, quarterly maintenance is, which in Southern California, a restaurant that only does quarterly maintenances, it's better than no maintenance, but it's not enough. Okay. And it just causes problems. Let's see what else. Customer does what customer wants. That's 100% correct. Reading through the chat. Seeing what I'm missing. Doesn't look like I'm missing. Am I still driving the same van? I think I'm in the van that I made the most recent video about. I'm getting ready to get out of that van, and I'm actually going to pass that down to someone else. And probably we have 2 vans on order. I don't know if we're ever going to get them because we ordered them like 8 months ago and they're still not here yet. But, yeah, when we get a new van, I'll probably, even as much as I don't want to, I'll probably be changing over into the new van. How did I manage to start my service company so young? I didn't start my service company. I'm second generation. My dad started this company 30 years ago, and we partnered, and I'm running the company now. My dad still has his foot in the door, but he's got 2 feet out, if that makes sense. I mean, he's basically done. He doesn't work in the field anymore. Comes into the office 2-3 days a week, and he's ready to retire. So I did not start this company. I have basically taken it over and continue to run it. How hot does it usually get in my Southern California region? So the interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is that Southern California has a lot of microclimates. Okay. I can drive 45 minutes to the ocean to Huntington Beach, California, where it was 80 degrees today. I can drive an hour and a half to the desert where I was working today, and it was 118 degrees on the roof. Okay. My house, it was about 103 degrees on the roof. I can drive up to the high desert, and it was 108 degrees on the roof. Okay. We have a lot of different microclimates. So how hot does it get in Southern California? It depends on where you're going. Okay. Depends on if they have an ocean breeze, depends on if you're in the mountains. I can drive up to my local mountain community and it was 80 degrees today. So, we just have all kinds of different microclimates. My Design temperature at my home is 95 degrees, but that's the design temperature, right? That's the more, you know, they take an average of all the temperatures throughout the year. And that's our average, you know, consistent number is about 95 degrees. But right now we're in a heat wave. It's, you know, 103. So rule of thumb for cold rail cut in and cut out, Nicholas. Too many variables in that. Does it have a fan motor or not? Is it a static cold rail with no fan motor, or does it have a fan motor? You know, the rules of thumb are really difficult too, because manufacturers design equipment to the beat of their own drum, basically. Okay. They might put a different nozzle and distributor in the expansion valve to get a different pressure differential. Like, so it just changes, right? So each manufacturer is going to have their own design criteria, and you have to go by them. So here's the little trick behind that. Manufacturers, let's just say you call Chirac, right, to work on one of their reach-ins, or no, let's say True Refrigeration, right? You call True and you say, hey, I'm working on one of your coolers. What kind of operating pressures, what kind of superheat, and what kind of subcooling are you looking for? And they're going to say, well, we don't do anything. We don't publish any superheat subcooling numbers. All we tell you is the operating pressures at an ambient temperature and a box temperature. So they tell you at maximum of 85 degree or 80 degrees, and at a box temperature of 35 degrees, your suction pressure is going to be this, and your liquid pressure is going to be this. Well, you can actually use that to kind of figure out their design criteria, because if you know what pressure the low side is at 35 degrees, right, you can now figure out the coil TD, because you can basically look at the return air temperature, 35 degrees, right? You can look at the suction pressure, you can convert that to a saturation temperature, then you can figure out the evaporator coil TD, and you can do the same thing for the condenser TD. And then that can help you to kind of try to figure certain things out, but it's not going to give you superheat and subcooling. It's not necessarily going to give you cut in and cut out pressures on a pressure control. So unfortunately, you're going to have to lean to the manufacturer to figure that one out. And I apologize about that. CM, thank you very much for that super chat. Let's see. Your company simply replaces start components on reach-ins with a 3-in-1. Closest supply house is 4 hours away, so you have to order them. What's the potential harm if you don't replace with OEM parts, if it's sized right? The biggest thing I'm going to tell you, CM, I don't have one back here. If you grab a 3-in-1, okay, if you look on a 3-in-1, 3-in-1 is a start kit basically for a fractional horsepower compressor, typically no bigger than 3/4 horsepower. And it's a all-in-one universal start kit. It replaces the potential relay or the current relay, the start capacitor, and the overload. Okay. Starting components typically consist of that. Sometimes you can add a run capacitor to it too. If you're using a 3-in-1 start kit, okay, they have a rule of thumb on the side of them, and it says it's good for up to 3/4 horsepower compressors. Okay. Throw the 3/4 horsepower, 1/3 horsepower out the door. Okay. Just absolutely ignore that if you're going to use a 3-in-1. I don't like 3-in-1s, but I'll use them to start a compressor. Okay. What you want to look at is the current, the max current on that start kit. Okay. Typically I don't use anything smaller than the biggest one that they make, which I think is the 3/4 horsepower one. I just keep that on my truck, but they aren't meant to operate at a higher current than what's rated on there. And if you put it on there, you're going to find that it's going to go off on overload. Okay. But what's the harm in using a 3-in-1? You're violating the UL listing of the compressor. Okay. Now, am I a person that never violates UL listings? No, I've done it. Okay. But the biggest thing is that on fractional horsepower compressors, the overload, right? It's a clicks-on overload. It's usually mounted to the body of the compressor. I'm going to ask the chat right now, and I'm curious if the chat knows the answer to this. On a clicks-on overload, there's something that happens when you use a 3-in-1, and I'm curious if the chat knows what it is. The 3-in-1 has an overload in it. Okay. But what happens when you use a 3-in-1 that has an overload versus if you use the factory OEM overload? Okay. There's one big issue there. And I want to know if the chat guesses what that is. Okay. Let's see if the chat can answer this one. Reading through here right now, seeing what else I'm missing. So what's the one big thing that when you use a 3-in-1 that has a built-in overload, that the compressor, it loses a protection, a safety protection built into the clicks-on overload, right? And when you use a 3-in-1, that protection is lost. It's our LRA. Okay. Overload on a 3-in-1 is not in contact. That's the exact answer. The overload on a 3-in-1 is not in contact with the compressor. So it loses its ability to go off on overload based on the thermal conditions of the compressor. A clicks-on overload has the ability to be mounted to the compressor and sense the heat from the compressor along with the current going through it, and can cause that bimetallic disc to pop. So not only the current of the system running through there, but the temperature of the overload being pushed up against the body of the compressor. When you use a 3-in-1, you take that ability for it to sense the thermal temperature of the compressor, and you only sense the current going through the overload. So that's why you violate the UL listing of the compressor. I don't really care for 3-in-1s too, though, because let's just say that your 3-in-1, that's not the only reason why I don't like them, but if you take the 3-in-1 and you rip off all the plastic, pull the top off of it, and pull the sticker off that says the manufacturer and 3-in-1, and there'll be a normal start capacitor under there. That start capacitor will not always be the same size start capacitor that is required by the manufacturer. So the manufacturer of the 3-in-1 start kit is taking an assumption that this should be able to start these compressors, but it's violating the OEM start values basically that the manufacturer has set aside. So again, that's another thing that I don't really care for. Can I expand on what this UL listing term means here? So basically, the manufacturer has, for all the electronic components, this is my understanding, the manufacturer has gotten approval from Underwriters Laboratory to operate this compressor with these components based on certain conditions. And they have their electrical components and all these different things. And if you change the electrical components, you change the UL listing, you're no longer falling under their approval guidelines. And maybe I'm saying that incorrectly, but I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. Can't use both overloads. I don't know, I guess you can. I don't know. You'd have double. So let's see what else. All right, right on. I really appreciate everybody that's in here. Some people are saying they're having to go. So see what else we got going on in there. All right, I got a couple more things. So I want to tell you guys a little story. So I had this restaurant. They built this brand new restaurant about 8 years ago, and they spared no expense. Well, they spent money in some weird places. Okay. So they put these spaceship units up there, and I call them spaceships because they're these fancy, and while I agree that it's nice to have technology and equipment, okay, these are massively over-engineered for this particular restaurant, okay? This is a very, very popular restaurant chain, and they installed these really high-efficiency, fancy spaceship units that have variable speed condenser fan motors, variable speed compressors, all this fancy stuff, right? So they spent all this money. They put a controls package that I have absolutely no access to, okay? Because you have to buy the fancy software that I have no interest in buying because I only have one customer on this particular controls package. You guys are probably guessing the name of the brand. You can guess it in the chat. Go for it. But anyways, this restaurant, the salesman just went nuts selling them this. Their controls package runs the lighting system for the building. It runs the air conditioning system, which again, I have no access to besides a tablet in the office. And then they have these variable speed, fancy inverter driven compressors. You know, it's just got everything you can have. But then they installed like 7 exhaust fans in this massive makeup air unit that is using evaporative cooling. Okay, that's it. So you have a 15-ton package unit just for their kitchen, just a 15-ton just for the kitchen. And then you have a makeup air unit that's pulling 7,000 CFMs of outside air. It's currently 108 degrees up there right now, but they have an evaporative cooling media on it. Evaporative cooling medias, it's just cell deck pads, okay? Typically, I mean, at the lowest speed, you're going to get 20-degree temp difference from the outside, but you're lucky if you're going to get 10 to 15 degrees. So I'm seeing about 10 to 15 degrees temp difference from outside air running through the cell deck media to the temperature of the air blowing down into the building, but it's also adding latent load. Okay. So this particular restaurant has all this fancy air conditioning equipment, and then they have this evaporative cooler blowing all this air that's just defeating the purpose of this entire AC. So when we get monsoonal moisture coming through where we hit like 70, 80% humidity outside, they start getting water dripping from their ceilings because the evaporative cooler doesn't have the ability to shut off the water pump based off of relative humidity outside. It just looks at dry bulb temperature. So it's just running its little heart away, just pumping in more humidity into that building. The ACs can't keep up. This last weekend, they called me out there, not because of humidity, but just because it was hot. And I'm like, guys, I can increase the spray time on the water misters, but then I'm just going to add more load, more latent load to your building. It was just, I'm just so dumbfounded that they went so nuts with their air conditioning system, and then they just installed this evaporative cooling media on their makeup air unit. It's just ridiculous. But don't think they do HVAC. Family businesses are the backbone of America. Just wanted to say thanks for keeping the business in your family. Thank you very much there, Paul. That's really awesome of you, man. That's really cool. Let's see what else. How do you get the product funk off? Oh, the prep table funk is what I call it. In the reach-ins. Yeah, wear gloves. That's your best bet. If you get prep table funk on your hands just from working on reach-in coolers with salad dressings and different things like that, it gets under your fingernails and it's just absorbed into your skin. You just got to wash them a lot or just wear rubber gloves. We go through rubber gloves like they're out of style at our company. So, let's see what else we got going on here. What's the cause of HVAC indoor coils frosted? Typically, low airflow. That could be dirty coils. That could be blower motor not moving enough air, some sort of blockage, and the saturation temperature of the refrigerant getting too cold. That's typically what causes coils to frost. So see what else we got going on in the chat. Cardboard from dumpsters are your friend. Right on. Cool. Well, it is that time, everybody. I am going to go ahead and get ready to wrap this one up. I do appreciate you all. It's time to go hang out because my family, half of my family is leaving for 10 days. So I want to go spend the rest of this evening with them before they go away for their nice summer vacation. So the way that I typically do things is I encourage my family to go away during the summer for an extended vacation. They're going to see some family members. We had a family member that recently had a new baby. And so my wife and one of my daughters is going to hang out with them. And they're going to spend about 10 days where they're going. So I want to go hang out and say goodbye to them and stuff. So I really do appreciate you. I'm going to cue up the outro music. Thank you very much for everybody coming in here. If you guys have any questions or things that I failed to answer, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I really do appreciate you. And we will definitely catch you on the next one.